I've never hired a sex worker, so I didn't even realize that dinner was part of the equation. Back in 1980, the US Ad Council was hired by the Department of Justice to create PSAs with the goal of reducing crime. To that end, the Ad Council created the character of McGruff the Crime Dog. McGruff wore a long trench coat and talked like a grizzled 1940s private investigator while warning American citizens to take a bite out of crime. I'm sure this was incredibly effective, right, Kevin, who wrote today's script? I just read it. The advice usually centered on small things people could do in their daily lives to impede criminals. It's like, if you see someone fleeing the police, stick out your leg and trip him over, says McGruff the Crime Dog. Ruff. I have no idea what McGruff is, because he's American, but he speaks like ruff, ruff, ruff. Stuff like locking their doors, keeping outside lights on at night, having neighbors watch their houses when they weren't home, and so on. All the shit just seems like common sense, no? How to stop crime. Have you considered not being an idiot? When you go on holiday, have you considered leaving some light? Whenever we went on holiday as kids, my dad would always leave Radio 4 on, which is like British talk radio. It just turn on the stereo real loud. And we lived in the middle of nowhere. People would break it all. You'd go on holiday, you'd just come back, and it'd be weird if someone hadn't broken in and stolen your shit. And it's like, yeah, you could have the neighbors look over it, but they're fucking miles away. A lot of ads were aimed at children as well, teaching them valuable lessons like not to get into cars with strangers. It was a successful campaign, and Scruff McGruff was a household name. I take it all back. Scruff did his job. These ads ran for decades, presumably until police raided the voice actor's home in 2011 and found 1,000 pot plants, 27 weapons, including a fucking grenade launcher for some reason, and 9,000 rounds of ammunition. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Oh my God, Scruff, what have you done? And also, I was like, 1,000 pot plants? What's wrong with having a pot plant? And then I realized it's like pot like marijuana rather than pot like, like a potted plant. Like a fucking cactus or some shit. Although he had a grenade launcher. Also 1,000 pot plants? Can you have that in your home? I feel like it's in his underground facility. Though they needed a new actor, McGruff was pulled out of retirement recently to help warn people about the dangers of fentanyl. But Florida Man consistently seems to have issues with comprehension. Rather than trying to take a bite out of crime, instead he chose to take a bite while committing crimes. And since this is Florida, you can rest assured that half the people in today's episode were naked. Yeah, I just recently learned a human bite is really dangerous. Like, if you get bitten by a human, you got to get that shit treated, because apparently we've we got a germ factory in our mouths, which, not brilliant when introduced directly to the blood. Who knew? Florida woman tries to bite off a man's penis. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Just about everyone has some sort of nightmare dating story. And if you don't think you do, chances are that nothing's coming immediately to mind, and I know where Kevin's going. It's like, I've had things where it's like, not super great. But you're like for it to be a true nightmare, other than like, oh, conversations like blood out of a stone, is it? Oh, no. And if you don't think you do, chances are you're other people's nightmare date. There are a lot of things that can go wrong during the date, but if the date was set up on Backpage, at least you can be reasonably sure how it will end. What the fuck is Backpage? If you're unfamiliar, Simon, yes, Backpage was theoretically just a Craigslist clone. It really rose to prominence after Craigslist stopped allowing users to post personal ads, at which point Backpage was basically just a site for sex workers. Yeah, this is like the classic business opportunity when a big company that can afford to have ethics because they have loads of money from other shit, take something out. Like when OnlyFans, didn't they say we're not going to do nudie content anymore? It's like, you're OnlyFans. What the fuck else is on OnlyFans? It's a great opportunity to provide that service that a big company has just decided not to provide anymore because they can afford to have ethics. It has also since been shut down for facilitating human trafficking. Never mind. The point is that when an unnamed Florida man booked a date with 29-year-old Florida woman Priscilla Vaughn, he thought he knew what he was getting into, but he was wrong. The evening began the same way as millions of other horrible dates have, with dinner at Applebee's. I'm not sure, I know much about. I don't think I've ever been to an Applebee's. I don't know much about Applebee's, but Applebee's is it's not quite like a good restaurant or like a restaurant, and it's not like a McDonald's, right? It's like that. There's a word for it. Not fast food. That's down here, and then you've got restaurant food. There's a word for these restaurants, like Chili's. I've never hired a sex worker, so I didn't even realize that dinner was part of the equation. Yeah, he's calling it a date, but he's just hired a sex worker. What? You don't have to take them to dinner, do you? I don't know. Also, never done it. But seriously, guys, Applebee's sucks and you should really do better, even if dinner is just a prelude to you paying for sex. He at least could have taken her to Waffle House so they could get dinner and a show. Anyway, the evening began about as well as any evening at Applebee's possibly could. Then the couple retired to Crestwood Suites in Orlando for a bit of the old slap and tickle. I was at dinner a while ago. And it was me and my wife in a restaurant. And across the room, and it's like, I don't want to judge people, but there's a dude sitting with a woman who is much younger, much better looking than me, and he doesn't look rich. And I'm like, what's going, like, look, I get it. I'm sitting at dinner with my wife, who is substantially better looking than I am, but I'm also like, it's not like an insane equation to put together. It's like we're not an order of magnitude apart. But this was like, what's happening? And I was just I was sitting at dinner like wondering, and they weren't talking to each other. They were just on their phones. And I'm like, what is happening here? It's just so curious. And I just can't imagine being in that situation. It just feels so awkward. Like, why? Anyway, speaking of like not judging other people, there I was like fully judging other people. Don't let that fancy sounding name fool you, though. The motel was an absolute shithole. What was? Oh, Crestwood Suites. Yeah, I sometimes feel like the fancier the name, the shittier the place. But it was a room with a bed, which was all Florida Man cared about. Note that Priscilla's specific actions within that room are all alleged from the statement given by Florida Man. He's not going to put the bite marks on his own cock. Once inside the room, the couple had drinks, smoked some weed, and Priscilla snorted some ecstasy. Holy shit, I didn't even realize you could snort ecstasy. There you go. That's when it was time to get down to business.
Let's get down to business.
Ecstasy's a drug I've never done, and not to promote drugs, but it is a drug that I'd like to try someday. It sounds pretty awesome. That's when it was time to get down to business, with Priscilla going down on Florida Man. Unfortunately for Florida Man, his dick and balls would never be the same. Holy shit, what's his balls got to do with it? Priscilla bit Florida Man's cock so hard that it almost came off, and she went to town on his balls as well. One report described his testicles as being eviscerated, which is quite possibly the worst word you could use to describe testicles. Holy shit. I got that shivers. Florida Man tried to leave the room, but Priscilla held on to his cock with her mouth. No, I'm just kidding. She blocked his path. He tried to fight back, but she overpowered him. She also stole his phone so that he couldn't call the police. Other people heard what was going on, though, and they immediately did. Multiple calls came in from other guests after they heard what sounded like a wild beast attacking one of the hotel guests. One caller told the operator, "Lady, you better get someone over here quick because someone is about to die." I mean, his balls have been eviscerated. Can you die from eviscerated balls?
Yes.
Is there like arteries and shit down there which can make you bleed out? Can you just like wrap it with some gauze and head to the hospital? Man, I don't want to think about this anymore. His grammar may have been a bit off, but his analysis of the situation was spot on. Oh yeah, he said it weirdly. I corrected it on the fly thinking it was a mistake, but he's a Florida man. I should have, or woman, or whoever called the operator. But his analysis was spot on. When police arrived on the scene, they discovered Priscilla growling and covered in blood. She was arrested, and they attended to the victim, who kept fading in and out of consciousness while trying to explain what happened. Not only had Priscilla eviscerated his genitals, she had beaten his head, gouged his eyes, and bitten other parts of his body. Holy shit, Priscilla. I'm wondering what the fuck he did to her. There was blood everywhere, and first responders were confident that if the other hotel guests hadn't called 911 so quickly, that the victim would have died. He was rushed to the hospital and survived, but he did need reconstructive surgery for his crotchal region. Is crotchal region like the medical term? I can't believe it is, but I do like that. My crotchal region. Now, it's possible that the victim was mistaken when he believed that Priscilla had snorted ecstasy. It's certainly possible she'd taken bath salts, as that's the drug most linked with face-eating behavior. Is that like meth or something? I don't remember what bath salts are exactly. However, other evidence in the room suggested that this was some isolated drug-fueled psychosis rather than a deep desire that Priscilla had. Yeah, this feels like a drug-induced psychosis. This doesn't feel like she really wanted to eviscerate his testicles and consume his penis. Among her belongings was a dildo that was covered in bite marks, which had the head bitten off, suggesting that she really just wanted to clamp her teeth down on some poor dude's cock. Wait! That it wasn't a drug-induced psychosis? This is what she really wanted? This is so fucked up. Given the Florida man very likely would have died if authorities didn't arrive so quickly, Priscilla was charged with attempted murder, aggravated battery, false imprisonment, and hindering calls to law enforcement. Priscilla's going to a prison for a long-ass time. You want to get some gamer subs, by the way? You see how wired I am? You see how juiced up my brain is? Gamersubs.com. No, it's right there written and I can't even read it properly. Gamersubs.gg/blaze. It's delicious, it's caffeinated if you want it to be. They also make caffeine-free versions. It's some good shit. Check it out. She was only prosecuted for aggravated battery and witness tampering, and those charges were eventually dropped. Holy shit. How do you bite someone's cock basically off and eviscerate their testicles, steal their phone, stop them from calling the police, hammer their head, gouge their eyes, and then walk away basically scot-free? What is happening, Florida? There's no reason given, but if I had to venture a guess, I'd wager that the victim and her star witness weren't keen on going to court and testifying about what had happened. Florida man lets snake bite her infant daughter. By the way, Priscilla got away with it. That's crazy. Raising children is a complicated process full of difficult choices. Oh, and you're 5-year-old. In that situation, sorry, I hate to stick with the Priscilla thing. So basically, the police don't have a good witness because they don't want to talk about it, which is fair. But if you make... I'm just wondering, like, can you then just be like to a witness, hey, don't talk about it, I'll give you $1 million. Is that, I guess that's witness tampering. I guess that is a crime. But where's the difference between it's something they don't want to talk about and it's something they don't want to talk about because they're getting paid not to talk about it? I'm not sure what, like, how do you balance that? All right, let's move on from Priscilla. We've had enough of the old cock muncher. When your 5-year-old child asks where babies come from, my child is fine, do you teach them about the basic mechanics of sex and human reproductive system, or do you just feed them some tripe about a stork to shut them up for a few years? I just say, it comes from mummy's tummy. For most decisions parents have to make, there isn't one right answer, though there are frequently wrong answers. In general, though, how parents choose to raise their children is their own decision, and it isn't really anybody else's business. I mean, it is. It'd be like, how are babies made? Let me show you. That'd be fucked up. Don't do that. But this is America, which means we have a God-given right to interject our opinions into everyone else's business, whether they like it or not. This is what Florida woman Chantal St. Laurent found out after winding up in hot water back in 2017. She posted a video to her Facebook page showing off one of her parenting decisions, and a whole lot of people had a whole lot of opinions about it, resulting in a criminal investigation. Chantal had found a small red rat snake, better known as a corn snake, in her driveway, and she decided that this would make a good teachable moment for her 1-year-old daughter. You can't teach a 1-year-old. They are one. She scooped the snake into a Tupperware container, then filmed herself presenting the container to her daughter. When the baby reached in, the snake immediately struck, biting her hand. This happened like 3 times over the course of the video. Well, do you get the impression that she's not learning because she's f***ing 1 after the second bite? What are you doing? Needless to say, this did not go over very well, and the sheriff's office immediately received a number of complaints about the video from people accusing Chantal of child abuse. But in a TV interview, Chantal laid out a pretty reasonable argument. She lived on 9 acres of land that was filled with various types of wildlife that her children could potentially interact with. The child is 1. They can't learn shit. They can't even learn to shit properly. Literally. Not wanting her children to get hurt by doing something stupid, she decided to teach her baby a valuable lesson about the bitey nature of snakes. I'm going to give Chantal the benefit of the doubt here and just assume that she's really fucking stupid. Chantal also mentioned that the snake isn't venomous and that its teeth were too small to break the skin, so it was a harmless act. And as far as I can tell, that's totally accurate. If it was a particularly large corn snake, it might have been able to break the skin, but the one Chantal found was a juvenile. That's not to say the bite couldn't hurt a little bit and wouldn't be scary since the kid was just a baby, but the stunt wasn't particularly dangerous. That kid's gonna have some fucked up feelings about snakes for their life. She ended the interview by saying,
and she's not scared of snakes, but she doesn't want to touch them either. So that was my goal.
And you know what? Fair enough. I don't disagree with Chantal's overall goal or her assessment of the safety of this little experiment. I just don't know how necessary it is to teach this particular lesson while the baby is still barely old enough to crawl. Maybe wait until she's old enough to be running around outside and, encountering f***ing snakes. Or just tell them snakes are f***ing dangerous. Just do that. It's like, and also like, I'll tell my kid, don't touch the pan. Don't touch the pan. At some point, they're going to touch the pan because they're kids. And then they learn that lesson that way. But me saying, hey, look, a hot pan. Why don't you touch it and see what it's like? That's insane. In the end, though, the sheriff's department decided not to press charges. While it was the official stance of the police that this was a stupid thing to do, they did not feel their actions were criminal since the snake was harmless and the whole ordeal was to teach a meaningful lesson. Yeah, look, Chantal's just dumb. It's like, hey, there's loads of dumb people. For her part, Chantal didn't regret her decision at all. The only part she regretted was putting it on Facebook for all those morons. Look, Chantal, you're a moron. Like, you just are, in my opinion. Allegedly. Florida women bite students over pickles. I mean, I do love pickles. Pickles are delicious. I don't know if this was a thing in the UK when you were growing up, Simon, but here in the US, our schools think it's important to teach students about work and responsibility, but only like 6 students tops per school. To that end, starting in middle school, it's customary in public schools for there to be a school store run by the students. Ooh, no, we don't have that. There's like shops at school. We had like a tuck shop. Hold on.
2 hours later.
Sorry, I was 3D printing something and it got all sorts of fucked up, which sucks. But it was only 6% done, so we're okay. To that end, starting in middle school, it's customary. Oh yeah, so we have like stores. There's like a tuck shop and a stationery shop, and for the tuck shop you have to have your own money, but for the stationery shop you can put it on the bill. But it was run by staff, not by students. In my high school, we had a branch of the local bank run by students. What the fuck? What? But I don't think that's particularly common. What? There's a bank in your school? Aside from teaching valuable life lessons to the handful of students that run these stores, wait, the students are running a bank? What is happening? I mean, it's kind of smart. It's just still like super shocking. People are like, yeah, of course, Simon, there's banks at every American school. How do you think we get into debt so early? They mainly exist for the convenience of the student body. However, teachers will sometimes venture to these stores as well, such as 63-year-old Florida woman Rhonda Rice, a teacher at Bartow Middle School. Rhonda had a rumbling in her tummy, the kind that only pickles could satisfy, so she grabbed a jar of pickles from the store and started to walk out. This is already weird, because why the fuck was the school store selling pickles? I don't know. We had a tuck shop. It sold all sorts of shit. Usually, they sell things like pencils, erasers, and notebooks. Oh, okay, so that's like the stationery shop. If the school administration is feeling particularly kind, they may even allow snacks like candy bars and bags of chips. I just remembered we used to abuse the shit out of a stationery store. We'd go in and be like, yes, hello, I'll have 10 bags of rubber bands, please. Put it on my bill. And the fact that an 11-year-old can go in and just put something on their parents' bill, we just made huge elastic ball bands. We'd just spend all lunch break just making giant elastic ball bands that our parents paid for. So thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad. But what the Middle school is stocking their school with pickles. And it's not like individually wrapped deli pickles that you'd have with a sandwich for lunch, but entire jars of pickles. This doesn't seem that weird to me. Parents sending their kids to school in Bartow and telling them we're having hamburgers for dinner, so remember to grab a jar of pickles and a pound of ground beef from the school store on your way home. The only thing more bizarre than the store having pickles was Rhonda's reaction when the 2 students working there tried to stop her from taking the jar without paying. Upon being confronted, she allegedly grabbed each of their arms and bit them on the forearm so they'd let her go, which they did. You could just say, I'm a teacher, I'm taking the f***ing pickles, and they'll be like, all right. Both students immediately went to the administration to file complaints about the assault, and the school acted quickly by transferring Rhonda to a different middle school 30 miles away. That'll show her. The aunt of one of the students involved felt this wasn't an appropriate punishment, understandably so. So she went to the police to file official charges. Rhonda was arrested and charged with 2 counts of battery, though she countered the claims by saying that she licked them, not bit them.
What?
Which is, I mean, still weird, dude. Like, what are you up to? I'm not really sure that's better. If I was a young teenager and a 63-year-old woman bit me in an attempt to shoplift, then fine. I mean, not fine, but I sort of get it. But that woman instead to lick me? Not only would that be a markedly more uncomfortable situation, but legally it still counts as battery, if not sexual assault. So that wasn't even a good defense. Or maybe it was, because the charges against Rhonda were dropped. She was placed on administrative leave once the charges were filed, though, and I'm pretty sure she lost her job and moved across the country, so at least there's that. Naked man bites canine cop while high on meth. Wait, he bites the cop? The canine cop? Like the one handling the dogs, or he actually bites the dog? Because, dude, that dog is going to bite you back. And they're f***ing scary. Like, they're German Shepherds, right? Those are big, scary dogs. I'd like now to introduce you to one of the most Florida man headlines I've ever seen. The only thing missing to make this Peak, Florida, are the words inside a Waffle House. It was the early morning hours of Friday after Christmas in 2019 when police in High Springs, Florida received a call about a man using meth. What a surprise. They must get those a lot. They responded to the call to try and locate the man, at which point another call came in about a suspicious person using a flashlight in someone's backyard. Deputies went to the yard where they found 38-year-old Florida man Donald Watts pacing back and forth in a shallow creek while laughing to himself. Donald was completely naked and covered in mud, and deputies noted that he appeared to be attempting to make bird sounds for some reason. Sounds like we got another meth smoker on our hands, doesn't it? Upon seeing the cops, Donald fled and hid under a mobile home. He then crawled out from under the home and punched one of the deputies in the ear. Sounds like a bit of a... It's a bit odd, isn't it? Unsurprisingly, the deputies met force with force, tasering the fuck out of Donald. Both deputies deployed their tasers multiple times, but they had no effect on the meth-addled lunatic who ran off into the woods. The police called for backup, which included 5 more deputies and a canine unit. They went to track Donald, and when they found him in the woods, he was on his hands and knees, growling like an animal. Jesus Christ, don't do meth, guys. Don't do meth. It's like speaking earlier. Was it in this video? I recorded 2 in a row. Like I said, I'll try ecstasy. Like, ecstasy is a drug that I feel I haven't tried and I've missed out on. But don't do meth. Don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. Can't say that seriously. I just can't say it with a proper straight face. Drugs are awesome. Allegedly. The police dog was sent to apprehend Donald, at which point he leapt at the dog, pulling it to the ground by its head and biting its ear. Eventually, the dog broke free of the chokehold he was in and bit Donald in the head, at which point he was finally arrested. But not before spitting on one of the deputies. Donald was charged and found guilty of battery on a police canine and resisting an officer with violence, and he was sentenced to 1 year in prison. He fucking deserves it, dude. Like, not because he bit a dog. I'm not a particular dog lover, but this guy's insane. He needs some sort of punishment for this wild-ass behavior. Woman in Florida refuses to put on pants by biting cop. It was a typical Saturday in May 2012. There's no such thing as a typical Saturday in Florida, Kevin. Every Saturday's wild and different. Is it, though? They're just smoking meth and biting people. 35-year-old Ashley Holton was driving down Highway 484. Ashley was actually from Alabama, but given her actions in the Sunshine State, she had certainly earned the title of Honorary Florida Woman, and for once, it's a story that I think we can all relate to. Have you ever been driving down the highway, possibly after a few drinks, to loosen yourself up and suddenly become overwhelmingly horny? No. No, I haven't, Kevin. You know, the sort of uncontrollable lust that just sort of forces you to pull over, get it out, and masturbate in plain view of passing motorists. I think we've all been there, and that's just the sort of day that Ashley was having. All right, Ashley, Jesus Christ. For 30 minutes, traffic ground to a halt as drivers stopped to enjoy the view of Ashley absolutely going to town on herself. You're in a car, can't you just be subtle about it? Like... I've never jerked off in my car. It's a bit weird, but I mean, you like just I don't know, rack the seat back a little bit. Like, what's going on? Cars began making illegal U-turns on the highway just to get a second look, which was obviously a major disruption. She was clearly getting off on it as well. Oh, okay. As the honking of the horns only served to make Ashley fuck herself harder rather than being an unwanted distraction. Police eventually arrived to take Ashley into custody, but she wasn't having any of it. Instead, she kicked the deputies and tried to run away, only pausing so that she could pull up her shirt and flash her tits. When police finally got their hands on her, a female officer tried to put Ashley's pants back on. She responded by biting the officer, something she later referred to as a love tap. Things didn't get better once Ashley was in custody and being booked into the jail. She refused to cooperate with deputies, ignoring their commands. She instead countered with a command of her own by repeatedly spreading her legs and demanding that the officers eat her, which was still fully exposed as they never got any pants on her. Like I said, though, I think we've all had this sort of day. It's got to be a meth thing, right? Police suspected that Ashley had been drinking, though based on the charge, it doesn't seem like they actually administered a breathalyzer test. I mean, they probably tried, but I imagine Ashley just spread her legs and told them she had somewhere else they could stick it. Anyway, she was charged with exposure, sexual organs, resisting arrest without violence, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest without violence. She bit someone. And 3 counts of battery on a law enforcement officer. She was found guilty on all 6 counts and sentenced to 18 months in prison, which seems wildly inappropriate. I don't know, 18 months. She was obviously not she's obviously not quite right? I'm not saying the sentence was inappropriate by American standards, I just don't think it makes sense for her to be convicted of both resisting arrest without violence and 3 counts of battery on a police officer. Yeah, that is weird, right? I did point that out. But perhaps the real crime here was that the police didn't let Ashley finish. She clearly enjoyed the audience, so the deputies could have just created a human shield to block her from view of passing drivers until she finally climaxed, at which point she may have had the post-nut clarity to allow herself to be taken into custody peacefully. Oh, Kevin, too far. Thanks for being here. The evening began the same. Sorry, I read that already.